Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous, hosted by Bruce Hutchin. I'm so happy you joined us today, and you're going to find out a lot about whitetail hunting on the show.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous, episode number 351.
On this episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, Richie Roberts is going to share some secrets about hunting mature bucks. It's not easy, but he will tell you how to spend the best part of your day to find that buck of your dreams. He'll talk about stand sets. He'll talk about scent control. He'll talk about playing the wind. And he'll also talk about how you can get up on that mature buck without him even knowing you're there. Richie Roberts, welcome to the show.
It's never too early to think about food plots. Whitetail Rendezvous has an ebook for you. Just simply text 33444 food plot to get your copy. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. And today we're going to meet with Richie Roberts. Now, Richie is a longtime whitetail hunter. He's a member of Pope and Young, and he just loves to hunt. He's going to talk about today about hunting ethics, commercialization of our industry, and hunters need to think about inviting their wife, girlfriend, or other women in the community that want to learn how to hunt. Richie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's exciting. In the warm-up, we were talking about things. And what state are you from, please, sir?
I'm from North Carolina. I'm from the Piedmont area of North Carolina.
The home of NASCAR, right?
Yes, exactly right. Yes. What little bit of NASCAR is left?
Well, and I heard a story a long time ago, and please correct me if I'm wrong. The reason NASCAR got started is because the moonshiners had fast cars that were set up to go over the mountains and around the hollows and all that stuff, and then they get running in front of the revenuers, and that's how NASCAR got started. Now, is that fact, fiction, or fable?
That is absolutely correct. It all kind of started with running moonshine and people building fast cars, and then got down the road trying to build one faster than the other guy, and kind of stemmed from that.
So, folks, a little Americana, and I remember. I can't think of the city I was in, and a guy was telling me, he said, "You know how NASCAR gets started?" I said, "I have no clue." And he's well, son, sit down. So we had a beverage, and he proceeded to tell me, and he was an older gentleman, and he said, "I can tell you," and then he went off, and I mean, I just was rolling and crying, and It was a fun time. I digress, people, but you have to know where some of this stuff starts, and there's millions of NASCAR followers, but that's the heart and soul of NASCAR. They were running moonshine.
Absolutely, yes.
That's funny. Let's get back to hunting whitetails. So, Richie, what have you learned over 30 years of hunting whitetails?
Oh, wow. I've learned a lot of things, and I learn more each season. But I think as you age through your hunting career, you start to realize some things that you may not realize right off the bat. And one of those things is that you're never truly as smart as the whitetails you're after. They have an uncanny ability to figure things out, to pattern you better than you can pattern them. And yes, sometimes you get everything right and things work out well, but 80% of the time, let's be honest, 80% of the time it works in their favor. They deserve a lot of respect. They really do.
Now, in the last 20 years, you've been bow hunting, and so to me, you can go all the way down to sticking a string or compound bow. It doesn't matter. You're still going to be up close and personal. By that, I mean, guys can shoot over 40 yards of compound bows, but when you get thick timber and thick stuff, I mean, 30-yard shot's a long shot. What's your thoughts?
I believe, Bruce, that you're absolutely right. I know you are, as a matter of fact. 30 yards in the timber is a long ways. And for me personally, yes, I can go out on the target range and I can shoot 50, 60 yards. But where I live, where I hunt, we don't have those long open shots like you have out in the West. 30 yards is most of the time a max in the woods, and there's just too many variables, too many things that can go wrong. Trying to shoot a deer at 40 yards in the woods is very chancy, especially early in the season. There's so much brush and foliage. I believe that, they always deserve the ethical decision. You should never let your nerves get so much of the best of you that if you take shots that can be risky, they just deserve better than that. So yeah, I try to keep my shots at 30 yards or less, and most of the time, 90% of the time, you're going to have a shot much less than 30 yards.
When you think about shooting, how do you set up your stand? Let's talk about setting up your stand for the best possible angles to have a shot at a buck coming down the trail or coming by you.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in patterning, and I'm also a big believer in early season whitetails. That's my time to put my biggest deer on the ground. I like to do it before the rut starts because I've kind of got my deer kind of picked out, which ones I want to try to go after. And by the time the rut starts, they're running crazy, chasing does. You can't keep up with them. So I try to get in there early and make the best of it. And generally, that's where my biggest deer come from is the months of September and October. And you just have to go in. Once you decide that you've got some bucks in an area that you want, you go in, you start figuring out. To me, where they're eating at early is the most important aspect. If you can figure out what they're eating, what their preferred food source is for that time of the year, you go in and do a little reconnaissance, a little glassing from the edges from a distance, set up trail cameras, of course, and once you figure out what times they're coming in, I like to leave that food source and set up 100 to 200 yards on the downwind side of that food source. And that's generally where I hang my stand. Yeah, I let the wind direction kind of dictate which side of the area that they're coming through. But as a general rule of thumb, I'm 100 yards from the food source because once hunting season starts, September for us here, the older deer didn't get old by being stupid, and they realize that when it's daylight, it's not a good time to be strolling around in a soybean field. So they just kind of hang back in the timber until it gets completely dark before they come out. So if you set up on that downwind side, 100 yards or so off the food source, that's your best chance.
Now, what do you do if the wind isn't right? To hunt that stand. Do you have alternative stands, or you just call it a day?
If the wind direction is wrong, I do not hunt the stand. I've got other places set up where I can go maybe try to get a doe or something for the freezer or other bucks that I've had pattern. I may have stands set up if the wind direction's right for them. I do not go in if the wind direction's wrong. Like I said, that time of year, you kind of got an idea. You know where they're eating. You kind of got an idea where they're bedding. If the wind is blowing from you to their bedding area in the evening, you are not going to kill that deer. You cannot beat a whitetail's nose completely. You can do plenty of things to help, but you're not going to beat it completely.
So, listeners, Richie's got some really great experience in the woods, and sometimes we hunt stands when we're not supposed to. So just be smart, and I like to say to people, whether you're hunting a 40, an 80, 120, or 180, have your stand strategically placed, one, where you're going to have deer movement, but two, where the wind is your friend, not your enemy. Because I know there's a lot of control out there, and there's a lot of product, but playing the wind is the biggest thing that you can do. And why I brought that up about products, in the warm-up you mentioned about the commercialization of hunting. Let's unpack that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Well, I guess my biggest issue with the whole idea of it is that there are thousands of extremely good products out there, and there's a lot of products that will help you as a hunter. They will help you. They will enhance your experience. They will help your hunt, but they are not a cure-all for everything. You can't buy a product, use it, and then go out there and forget everything else you've learned as a woodsman because you're going to get beat every time. There's plenty of products again that help, but they cannot be taken as a cure-all. And also the commercialization of things have led to some representatives of some companies that don't have a lot of experience in the woods being woodsmen. So when these people are out there giving advice to these people just trying to get into the hunting scene, they don't know a lot about the actual experience, even enough to give good advice, and end up giving uh, youngsters and women, especially that are just trying to get in there, they end up giving them some bad advice from time to time. And it makes it more difficult for those people to enjoy the hunt because they can't figure out why things are not going right. I think we, as a hunting community, need to slow down on that commercialization and still push our products by all means. But if we're going to have representatives out there dealing with the public, with especially the non-hunting public that are trying to get into hunting, we need to have people out there that have a little experience so that they can help those people get into this sport and have a pretty good chance of being successful.
Thanks for sharing that. And rolling right from there into hunter ethics. And, we're all responsible listeners. If you're going to take the shot, it's going to be the best shot you can. And I know I've been there. I've rushed shots. I've taken shots that maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. And I was confident enough that I could fit it through that window, and it worked out. Other times it didn't work out. And, unfortunately, I've wounded game, and the coyotes ate them. Because I never
Right.
caught up. I hit a buck high, and he's going to die. But we just didn't find him. A lot of reason for that, rain
Right.
and I've had lost bucks to rain, and I've lost bucks to snow. And you go, snow, yeah. It's I hunt Wisconsin, and the early snow came in, and I was on a good blood trail, and then the snow just covered it up. I was done. The coyotes got him, and he probably died not quarter mile from where I left the track, but there was no way I could find him. There was no tracks and everything, so it happens. I get that, but when hunters ethics, why don't you explain what that means to you, Richie?
Um, Ethics to me, and like you were saying, Bruce, I understand. There's always that possibility of something going wrong. We certainly can't control everything, and yes, everybody's lost a deer, and everybody that stays in it long enough will lose one. Um, I think ethics nowadays has gotten put a little bit on the back burner. We've just got to slow down. We've got equipment now, and not just in archery, but in guns and stuff too. We've got equipment now that they say, well, you can go out here and you can make these 700-yard shots with a rifle, or you can take your 70, 80-yard shots with a bow. Sure, you can on a steel target out on the target range. But everybody's got to slow down and remember that out in the wild, there are so many variables that you can't control. And we do owe it to the deer to try to make an ethical shot. Now, yes, there have been a lot of times when I've had to shoot between two trees or shoot through brush, and that kind of thing comes from being able to do that kind of thing comes from having confidence in yourself, and that of course comes from practice. But the ethics of it is looking out there, seeing that deer at 60 yards, and saying, yeah, I can make that shot on a target range, but what if I take this shot right now at 60 yards? That's assuming that it's an open shot. What happens if on the way there, my arrow's on its way, that deer, it's just kind of grazing along, it decides to take a couple of steps forward before the arrow gets there. Then we've got a whole other issue. I think that sometimes people get wrapped up so much in the excitement of actually harvesting a deer that they make some bad decisions. Yes, it's been done for years, but I just want everybody to be aware of those possibilities so that everybody just kind of slows down and we just try to do the best we can. We try to make as ethical a shot as we can. We try to be as accurate. We practice as much as we can. You can't pick up a bow 2 weeks before the season comes in and expect to be so proficient with it that you can put it where you need to every time. Practice needs to come into it. There's just so many aspects of ethics, but that's just the majority of it. I just think we need to respect the animal enough to do the best we can, and we also need to be aware of the anti-hunting community that every time something like that comes up, we're just giving them ammunition. I think everything needs to be done in taste as well, and that includes our pictures of our trophies. I'm a big believer in you don't take a picture with your trophy with the tongue hanging out or with excessively bloody things. Yes, we as hunters know that that's part of the hunt, and I'm good with that. It's not the hunter community that I worry about. It's the anti-hunter community that I worry about. and they can do some damage in legislative areas that we don't want them to do. So I just think it's better if we just all do everything in taste.
Thanks for that. Let's think about hunters and how we're inviting, accepting women into our sport. I know you got some strong feelings about that, so let's unpack them.
Okay. As far as getting women into it, I think we need to be very pro female, try to get as many females in, because believe it or not, they tend to get more kids involved in it than us guys do. Yeah, we get our kids involved in it, but females tend to kind of put a softer side on things, and it does um, tend to help kids feel more comfortable getting into something new, less intimidated, and that helps the whole community. But women, the more women we can get in, the better. There's, the majority of anti-hunting communities are female, the majority. And I think the more women we can get into this, the more we can help show where our excitement comes from, where our past comes from, about being predators, about being meat eaters. And the more women we get in it, the better off we'll be all around. We also don't need to use them as poster girls for soy products just because they're a woman. And we need to give them equal credit when they're out there doing the same things we are. I think we absolutely need to give them equal credit for things. But I think females all the way around in hunting is the greatest thing ever. I think the more the better. And I truly look at them as my equal.
Thanks for that. And I attended ATA, and everybody to a company knows that women on the fastest growing outdoor segment, buying segment in sport today. No question about it. And so, guys, let's figure out whether you're at a store and a lady comes in and says, "Could you help me?" Help her just like you'd help your brother. And just because she's a lady, she has every right to spend her money, get the best equipment, get the best advice. And if you can't help her, send her to somebody that can. It's okay that you can't know everything. Yeah, you got to know a lot in big box stores, but you go to these pro shops, especially archery pro shops, they're there to help you, and they'll take as much time as you need to get set up. So ladies that are listening, go find yourself a really good pro shop. Sure, you can go to the big boxes, and if you're getting the help you need, great. If not, just go to the pro shop and say, "Hey, I need help. I want to get into the sport." And you'd be amazed how many of these pro shops, mom and pop pro shops, there's a wife there, there's girls behind the desk, and everybody hunts, everybody shoots. So, enough on that. Hey, tell me about your Elk Creek media. But before we do that, how do people get in touch with you, Richie Roberts?
Anybody can get in touch with me on Facebook. You can look me up, send me a message. You can go to bohntr1@gmail.com and email me. Look us up on YouTube on Elk Creek Media. It's just an amateur hunting show that we do. It's just for fun, for kicks, and see what kind of things we get into. A few deer, a few turkey, hogs, elk, bear, just, here and there, hunting, just fun hunting stuff. And just check us out or email me if you need to get in touch with me.
Okay, and your email address again, please?
It is bohntr1@gmail.com.
And how about Facebook? How do they find you on Facebook?
Just look me up as Richie Roberts. They can also look up Elk Creek Media on Facebook. We're not having a lot going on with the Facebook page of Elk Creek Media right now, but we're going to get it ramped up here before too long. But they can look me up as Richie Roberts on Facebook.
All right. Thank you for that. And I want to give a shout out to my good friends over at Whitetail Stalker, Mike Grenstaff, Shannon Sinton, and Joseph McCoy, and the rest of the crew. And, guys, like what we're doing is social media leverage. And folks, if you want to know what that's about, give me a shout out at whitetailrendezvous@gmail.com. And moving along, hey, one thing I wanted to say, this show's about real people in real places. So sometimes the audio isn't as good as you might want it to be. And again, real people, real places. And so we're doing the best we can. Let's roll along and let's talk about why you've got a few records in Pope and Young. How did that all happen?
Well, it since I got into bow hunting, I was about 14 years old, I guess, when I first started getting into archery heavy. And when I first started going to big game, um, from the beginning, all I can remember is thinking I really wanted to acquire that Pope and Young status. Yes, it's a hunter's thing. It's just a record of keeping up with animals that have been legally taken, ethically taken, and I really wanted to get into that. So I guess by the time I was in my 30s, I had taken enough deer with bows that I had cut my teeth, so to speak, and I was starting to look for higher quality animals. So I started managing a little bit, managing property I was lucky enough to be able to, and letting bucks grow. And that was the biggest thing about getting there. I've let these deer grow, and they do. It makes a huge difference. You have to let some deer walk if you want big deer consistently. And anyway, I got to the point where I was seeing the same deer, kind of knew them from the time they were a year and a half old to the time they went out of this world. And so started setting up on the first one. Started setting up on him, kind of getting an idea of what was going on in August. Got my stand set up just like we were talking about earlier. It took 3 hunts on that stand, I think, before this deer showed up in daylight on his way to a oats patch that I had planted at a food plot. And he showed up one evening pretty early, about 6:30 that afternoon, and shot him. And that was my first Pup and Young record. He grossed in the 130s, netted in the upper 120s. And then this past year, my second whitetail came along. He also grossed in the upper 130s, netted in the mid 130s. This deer, I had a pretty good record with. I had many pictures of him. He was on a pretty good schedule. But the morning I shot the second one, he came through about 8 o'clock, and he was just easing across an acorn ridge, picking up acorns, just kind of meandering along on the way back to his bed. And I shot him at about 12 yards. No issues finding him. But this deer, like I said, I had known well, had a lot of history with. When he was a year and a half old, he was a 4-point, and he grew almost to 140 inches by the time he was 5.5. So it makes a huge difference if you can let them go. And yes, I know you have to cut your teeth and get a few kills under your belt. And after you get to that point, though, you'll start slowing down and realizing that quality can be a little better than quantity. And so what I do is I have a few areas set up to kill bucks out of, and a couple of areas set up to kill does out of. I just want to take a doe to put in the freezer, and so that's how those 2 deer came about. It's just a patience and letting things grow kind of thing.
Everybody's heard, let them go, let them grow, and there's a trend today. You stay up with the stats after the season in Wisconsin, or just go to QDMA, and more older bucks are being killed. And I've killed my share of does, and I've killed my share of forks, and even spikes when I was first starting out.
Yes.
I'm looking up at a picture of my first hunt ever in 1966. We got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We used to do deer drives, and there I'm sitting with 5 bucks. We took off one drive, and they're all basket bucks. I mean, basket bucks
right.
Are they 60 points? I have no idea. That was my first hunt, and I couldn't have been happier because they said, Hutch, there's one, shoot, bam. And I shot my first deer. And if you've heard my story, I came from Long Island, New York, Forsyth Center, Rhode Island, 2 places I lived out east, went to Wisconsin, and as they say, the rest is history. But, back in the day, if it was brown, it was down. I mean, and we ate them. I mean, we would take them back, put them in the barn, and they taught me how to skin them and turn them into the hamburger and the steaks and the rib roast. I mean, it's just unbelievable because coming from where I did, I went to the store to get my meat. Well, I sure as heck found out where meat comes from. And what a lesson, what a lesson to learn. And if you've never really, taken your own deer apart, you take it to a processor. I would challenge you the next year you shoot, especially if you got kids, a wife, get out the YouTube channels and get a saw and get some butcher paper and get a nice table and take it apart and name the pieces of meat. Get familiar with it because, backstraps are great, and tenderloins are great, but it's all great when it's done correctly. That's for darn sure. So that I don't know how I got off on that, but I did, and not going to apologize.
I'm glad. I'm glad you did. It's another very important point. I believe is I agree with you 100%. Get your kids involved in cleaning deer and seeing where meat really comes from, because it's not all about the grocery stores. Deer meat, whitetail meat, can be very, very tender and delicious. Yes, it takes you a while to figure out exactly how to cook it, but once you do, you'll love it. You'll look forward to it every season. You'll make it a part of every meal every time you can. Um, it's good for everybody to see where it comes from. And yes, we were talking about earlier with taking forks and spikes and stuff. I've done my share of that, and I certainly wouldn't recommend a person starting out in deer hunting to wait on a 140-inch deer. You need to kill some to get under your belt. After you get a few, you'll start slowing down on that too. But the cleaning deer thing, absolutely yes. Everybody needs to get involved in that. Everybody needs to see it. That's where meat comes from.
And, thanks for that. We're kind of talking about the whole hunting tradition. So let's spend a couple of minutes on that, and then we're going to be close to wrapping the show. So let's talk about Richie Roberts and his hunting tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. My father started me out small game hunting when I was just barely big enough to tote a shotgun. He stuck a 410 shotgun in my hands, and we went out squirrel hunting. And he wouldn't let me tote a rifle, even a 22 at the time. He said, I need to start out with that shotgun. He'd worry about me a lot less that way. So we went out hunting, squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, bird hunting, and he is the person responsible for getting me into the hunting scene. He is the person responsible for instilling the safety, the ethics in me that I have today. I will always have him to thank for that. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to take the time to do it. But he introduced me to that, and it's just changed my life. It did. And, those kinds of things you can never allow yourself to take for granted. We don't ever know from one day to the next what might happen. And we always have to give thanks to those people that deserve it. And in my case, he certainly does. He is definitely the person that put me in this, and I would not have it any other way. I've taken my kids out hunting. They like to go out shoot. They're into shooting sports, actually. They go out hunting, and it's just a tradition that I want to carry on. My daughter is a big shooter, and so I think it's very important, not just for us as people to do that, but as for the hunting industry as a whole. It's very important to take your kids, your loved ones, friends, kids out hunting. This turkey season coming up, that's what we'll do, be taking kids out. Youth Week here, and trying to get them a turkey, trying to get them into this. It's great because it keeps them out of so many other things. And again, I just want to make sure my dad knows that I appreciate more than he'll ever understand getting me into this.
Well, I appreciate that. We're at the time of the show that you got a couple minutes here to give shout outs to whomever, and then we'll wrap the show, Richie.
All right. I just want to give a shout out to my mom and dad both for supporting me my whole life. My dad, certainly, as I just talked about, for getting me into the industry. There's a lot of other people that I need to mention. My wife, for sure, for putting up with my incredible habits all of these years. The money spent, the time gone. I love her very much, and I thank her every day.
Anybody else?
Well, there's a couple of companies that I would like to throw out there. Bushnell Optics. I want to thank them. I also want to thank Hunter Specialties Company, both outstanding companies, and Muzzy Broadheads. I just want to say thank you to them. No, I do not receive money from any of these companies. They are a hunter's company, all of them. They stand behind their products, and they will help you if you need it.
Richie Roberts, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. So on behalf of thousands of listeners across North America, we're so glad you were a guest today on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I really enjoyed it. Thanks again.
Hey, stay tuned for the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're going to visit with a special friend of mine, Kevin Orthman, who is the executive director of POMA, Professional Outdoor Media Association. If you're in the outdoors and a writer, a contributor of film, whatever you're doing on a commercial end or even on a private end, you should be a member of POMA. Why? Because it is the professional body of outdoor media persons. So listen up. Kevin Orthman has got some great hunting stories, but more important than that, he tells you why you should be a member of.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.